Now it's time for 24-24. And first up, presidential candidate Donald Trump has a new group nipping at his heels, trying to keep him off the 2024 ballot, a group called Free Speech for People, which is sort of an ironic name for a group trying to muzzle voters' choices. They want Trump banned from the Minnesota ballot. The group says it, quote, challenges government corruption, and they filed a lawsuit in Minnesota State Court. The lawsuit reads in part, quote, Donald Trump, through his words and actions, after swearing an oath as an officer of the United States to support the Constitution, engaged in insurrection or rebellion and gave aid and comfort to its enemies as defined by Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. He is disqualified from holding the presidency or any other office under the United States unless and until Congress provides him relief, end of quote. Now, this is the second group to file a lawsuit like this. Earlier this month, a group in Colorado called Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington filed a similar lawsuit. Moving on, yesterday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was asked if former President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden's ages, if they're a legitimate concern. His response?
I think that's an absolutely legitimate concern. The presidency is not a job for someone that's 80 years old. We need an energetic president. And I think that if the founders could kind of look at this again, I do think they probably would have put an age limit on some of these offices.
That was on CBS News. Next up, we have an important alert. Okay, we're having a little fun with that. Our stalker alert. It's a brand new feature here. This was after former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie made multiple threats of political stalking. And today, he did it again. Christie doubling down on following former President Donald Trump around the country. Christie took to X, formerly known as Twitter, to say, quote, don't worry, I'll track him down. I will confront him, and we will expose his lies and help me track Trump down today, end of quote. Will Christie be able to get his one-on-one time with Trump that he desires? And how often will we have to run that stalker alert? Who knows? But moving on. Today, former South Carolina governor, former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, issued a warning about Russia.
We know that Russia has said once they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next, and then you're looking at a full-on war. What we're trying to do is prevent war. We need to finish this because we have to always remember a win for Russia is a win for China.
And it's not just Russia's relationship with China that we should be worried about. Today, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un met with Russian President Vladimir Putin and pledged his full support to Russia. During their summit, Putin said Russia's relations with North Korea are a top priority. And to help prove that, Putin even let Kim Jong-un bring a date to the summit. The North Korean leader brought his sister, Kim Yo-jong. Okay, maybe not a date, and a bad joke. Next up, and we are going way out of our 2024 window, which we sometimes do, but we've never gone this far. We're going all the way back to 2012. Here's the news. Former 2012 presidential candidate and Utah Senator Mitt Romney announcing that he will not be running for re-election for Senate in 2024. On the way out the door, well, out the door next November, like many politicians, Romney just could not resist that chance to be snarky. He took an equal opportunity swipe at both President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump.
At the end of another term, I'd be in my mid-80s. Frankly, it's time for a new generation of leaders. On China, President Biden underinvests in the military, and President Trump underinvests in our alliances. Political motivations too often impede the solutions that these challenges demand.
And lastly, Washington Post columnist David Ignatius wrote a brutal opinion piece with the headline that reads, quote, President Biden should not run again in 2024. In the op-ed, columnist Ignatius also goes on to list the reasons he admires Biden. But then, and this is stinging, he gives the reason behind the headline. The column reads in part, I don't think Biden and Vice President Harris should run for re-election. It's painful to say that, but if he and Harris campaign together in 2024, I think Biden risks undoing his greatest achievement, which was stopping Trump, end of quote. And it appears Ignatius, a liberal columnist, also wants Harris to ride off into the sunset with his column. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp joins me. Nice to see you, Matt.
So is Kamala Harris too old, too?
No, she's not too old.
What's his reasoning?
I don't know. She's younger than both of us. All right. Let me talk first about, I teased Christie about the stalking thing. I hope he has a little bit of fun with it. I don't mean to be mean to it, but he's really on a tear about President Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, it's personal, and I think it comes across as like a personal vendetta. Remember, Chris Christie is someone who endorsed Donald Trump early after dropping out of the race in 2016. He ran his transition for a period of time.
Well, until Jared Kushner, the son-in-law.
Well, there was this conflict.
Jared Kushner made it pretty awful for Christie.
Well, but Chris Christie did put Jared Kushner's father in prison. So
After he's convicted by a jury for some pretty ugly things.
It's true, but it was,
you keep pulling the string on this one.
But what you're demonstrating is that there's personal animosity, and the presidency has to be bigger than that. It has to be about what do you really believe, and if you're going to run as a Republican against Trump, you got to really figure out why we need an alternative to Trump. And saying I have a political axe to grind is not so good. So I kind of like the stalker thing, because you shouldn't run for president, Greta, if there's no chance to win. Otherwise, it's a publicity stunt.
Except that you could get a robust debate going. I mean, that doesn't hurt the country. I mean, I don't think.
But do you think if Chris Christie wasn't in, we'd still have this debate about whether or not we want Trump back? I think we would.
Oh, I think we probably would too. Let me turn now to the Democrats. President Biden. There's a lot of drumbeat coming out for him to step aside.
There is. It's interesting.
Yeah, and it's like I don't understand why they're doing it so publicly. It's almost to the point it's a humiliation. I don't like that stuff.
Well, I don't think it's an inside job. Usually the Democrats are pretty good at the inside job. The decisions made by the major donors they have and the major activists, usually the unions, and the decisions made to move on. I don't think that decision has been made with Biden. I don't know if David Ignatius and the Washington Post mean what they used to mean. To my side of politics, no one even reads them. They're seen as a rag. But for Democrats, it must matter that
I think it matters to Democrats. I mean, I think it matters what the Republicans say about the Republicans.
Look, I think what the point is this: why would David Ignatius come out in this column and say what Democrats all say when the cameras are turned off, which is he's too old, his brain isn't working like it did, he was never considered like the sharpest knife in the drawer, and now we have this situation where Trump actually could win. So what David Ignatius is really saying, I know his title was one thing, but the title should be, we are panicked that Trump actually can win. And that's what's going on in Democratic circles.
Who's the backup to Biden?
I mean, there's a lot of talk about Michelle Obama. I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but
I don't know her, but I certainly have heard that she's not a fan of politics. I mean, she's done.
She's got good numbers, but
Great numbers.
Could she go through this withering process? Pretty rough process. Then you have Gavin Newsom, who's battle tested out there in California, who comes from a state that matters in terms of money.
All you got to do for Gavin Newsom, though, I always think, how would I run against these people? I just show the video up and down the state of the big cities. I mean, it's like, it's just deadly. I mean, if you're in charge of a place that's falling apart, and you just can't say that California's thriving.
So Democrats are also good at just finding somebody for the bleachers, which is what they did with Barack Obama, someone who no one even really knew. He checked the box of the racial background. They got Hakeem Jeffries running the House of Representatives. They like to go young and new. So they could have someone get created who the next thing you know is the alternative to Joe Biden. But what you're really saying is, how do you get Joe Biden off the stage if Jill Biden doesn't want him off the stage and Kamala Harris isn't getting the joke about how unpopular she is? If those two people decide not to leave, Jill being, I think, important for Joe Biden, I think they're going to be there.
I think it's important that he give a press conference and we see him when he's rested and does an hour and see how it does.
Can I go further than that?
Yeah.
If he doesn't want to get impeached, and if we're saying impeachment's political, why can't he answer all these questions?
Well, I don't blame him on that. It's like saying, why don't you talk to the FBI when they show up if you haven't done anything wrong?
No, but if he's saying that the wire transfers are okay, and if he's saying that these emails where Hunter Biden is saying he participated in these conference calls and he did these favors for his clients, if it's not true, at least give your side a chance by explaining it. What you have in the case of Texas with Ken Paxton is that as they're trying to explain why he should be impeached, there's no there. Right? They didn't learn anything new. And I think for Joe Biden, if he wants out of this thing, tell us there's no there.
Well, the plot continues. Yeah. Thank you, Matt Schlapp. Thank you.